Welcome. I was writing another chapter of my book, rewriting it actually. And this section was about realism. And I was ending the chapter in a way of talking about how we are here to, live the human experience, so to speak. Just a little brief overwording and oversight like that. Because as I was writing the end to that chapter, a thought came quickly into my mind, almost like you'd call it a download or a message or whatever it is, but that thought said to me that we were tricked. Now, in that section, I state that we're here to understand the human learning on how to get back to source, right? And how to connect with nature and this sort of thing. But that voice, that message that came into my mind's eye, my hearing, was that an angelic race was tricked into becoming human. This may or may not be factually correct. We all know my mind's a little bit out there, but it makes sense. Because if you think about it, with the Dark Crystal from Jim Henson, you have a race of being who are acting like they're good, coming in saying, we'll take care of it, and then tainting the crystal while the seer sleeps. We have a lot of these stories that talk about how they splice DNA and use the soul transfer of others coming in. And this sort of understanding that potentially an idea is an angelic race of beings, or whoever it was came down to earth. And with that soul transfer or that soul essence, it was all agreed that this specific community would be transferred into the human body. However that is, this is just a speculation. But if you were to think along the lines of, well, was a supreme race or being tricked from another one to enter the human body to only be capped or to only be stuck in a prison type environment, a reoccurring reincarnation environment to keep them enslaved under their rule? And it may have worked for a period of time. Everything was good, people were learning and growing, the feeling, the connection that these God beings had. And then that's when the races above or the other creatures took hold and entrapped them into the human psyche. It's possible. So, how would that make sense in the current reality of things today? Well, we all talk about how people have amnesia. They are trying to remember their way back to source, which was the original intent. But what if it wasn't? What if that was part of the trick, that we were to come down as angelic beings into the human experience to understand what it's like to be human, to procreate, to touch, smell, all the different things. For source creator or for angelic beings, it doesn't matter. And then over time, what happens is they enslaved the humanity, they enslaved the angelic beings, and they started messing about with it. The reincarnation process came in, the amnesia came in, and we're in the situations we are today. And then every time the race decided to become closer to source, the cataclysms happened to prevent that from happening, and then the cycle continues. It makes logical sense if you can think outside of the square reality of time. So if they were tricked, how does that make sense to you? Does it make sense to you? Could it be a possibility? I'm just throwing it out there because that's what came into my mind. So if we are still in that, and we're in the kind of, you could call it end times or the trumpets, however you wish to call it, and humanity is rising once again, they're starting to see the problems with leadership and government and all of this sort of reactive environments, that would lead towards another cataclysm, right? To prevent this from all happening. So that is a possibility. The other possibility is, well, if that was to happen, there might be a godly intervention. It might never equate because too many people are now aware they can't do it. But what about all of this mass migration of different cultures to different areas? You remember as well that over time, knowledge, creation, ideas is improving. Technology is being released at whatever rate they want to release it. So if we talk about bloodlines and families and histories and angelic beings inside of human bodies, we talk about the different races and the first people and all of this. If you wanted to taint or destroy a bloodline, what is the things that we have known people to do? Well, killing is one. That's one way of getting rid of it. Or tainting it so far that it's no longer what it used to be. It no longer has that angelic quality in it. This is just hypotheticals, but we know of all the first people, and the beings are of a specific darker race. The wider race was from other galaxies, potentially. So what if all of this migration to these cultures is not anything other than flooding the market for the long-term prospects? Because you have COVID and things like that were trying to kill off people, trying to change people's DNAs. What if it's just to stop the angelic beings, to stop them from ever leaving, to ever understanding, because you're inflicting all of that? You cannot trap the soul, but maybe they've figured out a way to do it. But if you focus on the migration, the multiculturalism, and the interbreeding of different cultures, this is what can happen. Over time, you have an outnumbering of different classes. So before, where there's Australians or Americans or Europeans and they outnumber each other, you're going to have a larger population. But now with that changing, now you have different cultures breeding with other cultures, their DNA is changing. So in effect, whatever line of lineage that was in there is now being manipulated or changed. So as the kids grow up, they've got more friends, and they've got more friends of color and these sorts of things. Look, this is quite a far-fetched view, but I'm just saying, from a tactical standpoint, if you couldn't get away with killing people and removing bloodlines from all of that because of possibilities, and you were having to find a different way, this would be the way. You would make sure that the bloodlines or the angelic lines are tainted through injections by the self, through mass immigration, where if you wanted a partner now, it's going to be extremely difficult to find someone of the same lineage, the same DNA race, to keep that angelic going. These are all just speculations, really. But I find it fascinating that that specific voice, which was not mine, was more of an understanding that was to say that they were tricked. So I digress with all of my adages in there, but you think in the state of warfare, that is what they're trying to do. Maybe they're preparing for something because they know something's coming from their own doing. We don't know, potentially. But if you sit back for a moment and just think, well, what if they were tricked? What are the reasons why? What would be the purposes for it? And is this a earthly long years of millennia and thousands of lifetimes of torture and torment from angels that were promised the good things only to be tricked and manipulated. It rings true of Loki and all of the stuff about tricksters. We see movies where people are tricked all the time, so it has logical sense, it has foundation. So I wonder what you might think about that specific notion that a lot of the angels and higher beings were tricked into becoming human, just so that a power struggle or a rule could maintain over the other. I wonder. So it is with that, I leave you with peace and love. Take care.